I'm excited to be headed to San Diego on November 4th and 5th this year for the ERE Recruiting Innovation Summit. This event always brings together the best in talent acquisition, recruiting leaders, HR executives, HR tech, people that are really shaping where this industry is going. It's more than just a pitch fest. I mean, this is where actual learning comes in. They've been around for 30 years. It's a great event at San Diego in November. And you're going to have some excellent speakers, demonstrations. We have pin.com there. Joel Loudry will be there. You'll have the team from ERE there, Jim Stroud. These are people that have been shaping the industry this decade and really where it's going in terms of AI and the blend with AI and recruiters and all that good stuff. I went in April this year and it was a transformative experience. We had a great time with Digital Recruiter booth and speaking and just people learning about automation and content and AI tools. It was just really cool event. So I'll be an official content partner representing Digital Recruiter. So we're going to be capturing videos, doing man on the street, interviewing the speakers, the sponsors, really getting a pulse on the action. So if you're in talent acquisition, if you're agency recruiter, this is the place to be on November 4th and 5th. Go meet your peers in person, learn from them. There's virtual tickets, there's in-person events. It's an awesome time. And so please enjoy our ERE podcast series so it gets you a glimpse of all the people that are going to be at ERE, and we'd love to see you there. All right, welcome back to a very special episode of our ERE Recruiting Innovation Summit podcast series. I'm your host, Clark Wilcox, founder of Digital Recruiter. As always, we're excited for the next Innovation Summit in San Diego, November 4th and 5th. And I'm honored to have the wife of the conference organizer, Jen Jones, with me today. She's senior technical recruiter at Cedar. Jen, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Clark.
Of course. Well, thanks for hopping on and talking. I'm excited to learn about your speed, what you're going to talk about in your presentation, because it's, I think, one of the most pertinent things going on in recruiting and TA right now. It's going to be AI fundamentals for recruiters, building confidence, not confusion. You're on Wednesday, November 5th at 11 a.m. PST, 2 p.m. EST. So that's day 2. And I love this topic. It's probably the most talked about thing of just like, how do I get started? Because when I was there in April in Vegas, it was more like, I'm scared of AI. How do I use it? And I think this is kind of a big theme this year. So, I guess, why did you pick this topic? We'll start there. We'll go
Yeah.
from there.
I mean, I picked this topic because I think number one, it's not just because it's the soup du jour and everybody's talking about it. No, it actually works. It's actually made my life so much better. And, what I bring to the table, truly, I've really only been going pretty hard on AI since about February when I took Mike Walford's bootcamp, which was amazing, how to build an agent. And then from there, let's see, 2 months ago, I trained our team on AI. I actually did a 2-hour boot camp at our New York offsite. And so that's what kind of got me going. And so it was mostly about this. I mean, so for the purpose of ERE, as well as the other boot camp that I did, real use cases. Like, let's just not talk about all the fancy dancy jargons and all that kind of stuff, but like basic definitions, and then I'll show you what I do. Like, I mean, I'm just going to show you this variety of use cases and just tell you, like, here's the things that are just kind of barrier of entry, like kind of table stakes. This is
Yeah.
what you should know. This is what you should dive into. And P.S., maybe take my presentation and go back to your office and then you can become the AI expert. I'm not saying I'm everything, definitely go to Larry Hernandez at the same time is having a part 2 AI. So like more an advanced session. So I'm going to immediately say, if you're not using AI that much, stick around. If you already know what you're doing, go to Larry's next
Yeah.
door. So I'm excited for that.
I love it. And I think and I get accused of this because I've been doing the digital stuff for a few years, is I can advance the conversation and not always meet someone where they're at because I'm just in the weeds every day. So I like that you're open about saying, hey, I got into it this year, figured it out, because it shows the speed of which you can figure stuff out, and it can completely revolutionize your workflow if used correctly. So I think it makes it accessible, which it is accessible to everyone. And it doesn't always have to come from the experts and the vibe coders and the everything else, like the day-to-day, the practical use. And I joke that the name's Digital Recruiter for our company, but I'm way more recruiter than I am digital. Because I'm like, I know just enough to be dangerous, but I'm not like a savant or anything else like that, because that's the majority of recruiters. We need just enough to be able to have more human to human conversations, interactions, right? And be able to kind of screen more and have more on the client and candidate management side, because that's what we really want to get to. So
Mhm.
I love that you're presenting that. I like that it's going to be at that level, because things change and evolve so quickly that there's always the one-on-one is always new. Like the one-on-one AI is different now than it was in April, right? Because
Yes.
it's changing so rapidly. So it's like it's great, and own it. I love that, because I'll be there and I'm going to learn something from it, and I've used it for a couple years now,
Yeah.
right? There's no, like, we were talking about some different tools and just now when we were offline, like, that have evolved significantly in 6 months. So it's like, I don't know, you've been doing stuff with tools that like I haven't seen. That's why I get so excited about this event, because it's like you just go in feeling like a rookie again, and that's a good thing.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I learn things every day.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm. So talk to, I mean, give us like glimpse, like what's when you did you've done this boot camps, you're training your team, like what's like the first thing or two that you saw with AI that's like, whoa, this is really having, like, this is a game changer on my day to day.
oh my gosh, let me process this a minute. I
Yeah.
mean, I think one thing, and I'm just pulling one thing out of the air. I do have an agent that writes like me.
Yeah.
It knows how I write. I have configured it, instruction wise. I've given it, 10 or more samples of my writing. And gosh, it's got me dialed in. And
Yeah.
so if you need kind of a start, this is not a finished product, because you definitely should put your own touch on it. But I mean, oh my gosh, for a 0 to 1, if you just need to write a quick thing, for LinkedIn, you give the topic, boom, there it is. So, I mean, so like that's an example of something that I would talk about. And then also, I've created a drive. So I'm going to have a bunch of resources that people can just jump out to. And, just side note, I want it to be a choose your own adventure. If you find something and you're like, wow, go do it. If you want
Yeah.
to try to go off and create like, recruiter phone screen questions or video screen questions with a rubric. Guess what? There it is.
Yeah.
So these are some of the things I'll cover.
Yeah, it's great. It's the content piece is huge. I mean, we built out different content GPTs and the 10, 20. I mean, everything that I posted, all my newsletters and all that, and getting the voice, trying to figure out how to remove M dashes and all that fun stuff, removing the emojis, and
Yeah,
it's a fun balance. I think there's times where I like to leverage it and have the assistant, and then I realized it's actually there's times where I just like want to write like myself too, and so it's like I kind of go back and forth. I like testing both, like AI
yeah,
assisted versus just me. But I think the point you made about write your own samples, and that's what I've been coaching and teaching recruiters, like write the first 10, 20, 30 posts on your own,
yes,
and then feed it, and then study copywriting, study direct response, like study that art, because if you know that, you get so much, it becomes so much better, and then kind of how to navigate and troubleshoot a post to make it just that much better and that much more effective. It's like using AI to try to to do sourcing or screening, but if you don't actually have your own process, right, your own stuff, it's not going to be as effective as a rubric or anything else. So there's still that foundation of like get the reps, and then have like the AI is like there to enhance and like make better like what your kind of your core DNA is. It's like a recruiter, or TA person. So yeah, I think it's an important point and distinction. So I'm glad you said that, because I think starting with AI just from scratch, it's like you want to feed it a little bit more of you first, and it'll be better.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So obviously your husband's been fairly involved with ERE for a long
A
time,
decade.
right? Yeah, decade. Not your first time at the event and all that. Like, what are you most looking forward to, right, when you go to ERE, when you go in person?
Yeah, I mean, clearly, there's usually some topics front of mind, like things that are going on in your world, and inevitably there's somebody speaking, that you're pretty jazzed about seeing. To start off with, Daniel Susskind, who's the keynote opener. Super excited, to see what they have to say. They're very much on the pulse of what's happening with AI just in the greater state.
Yeah.
So I think speakers are always a good thing, but I would say yeah, I really enjoy just bumping elbows with people and, talking to them about, so what's happening in your world?
Yeah.
What are your biggest challenges? Want to talk about fake candidates?
Yeah.
And so, and like we all have similar problems. And so it's really interesting to see, like, what is your ecosystem? What's your tech stack? How are you dealing with these challenges? Just over a coffee. And like, and of course the camaraderie, like, I mean, it is a big family. So it is always nice seeing, those familiar faces again. But yeah, I mean, hearing what's going on in different environments, like I find that invaluable.
Yeah, and there's something nice about just there's no like pressure. Sometimes like with virtual and all that, it could be a different energy and different environment. Virtual work is great and all that. Don't get me wrong, but there is something just kind of very casual and informal about kind of that exchange of information. And there's just a bond formed to your point of camaraderie that it's like, oh hey, I met you in person. Like I know you're real and I know you're cool in person. And all that stuff. It's been a fun part of for me getting back out to conferences and all that this year, and it's just yeah, it is kind of just irreplaceable. And I love and there's so much like different stuff. Like there's so many different roles. I think like for me, learning about different people's roles and responsibilities at different companies and how they recruit, because everyone just has their own flair and there's different problems and different priorities at every company. And it's coming from the agency side. I think it's just really healthy for me listening to kind of internal recruiters like yourself. Like these are the challenges that you're facing. It's like, yeah, I would have thought that from the outside looking in or talking to some of my clients, but it's interesting to hear like boots on the ground the way you're kind of tackling some problems because there's different right pain points and urgencies and like day-to-day roles and say just being an agency recruiter, right, and kind of seeing where the overlap is but also seeing where like the complementary piece could be and how both sides can like work together and communicate better. I don't know, that was what stood out to me like significantly back in April. So I feel like I get to learn a ton every time, um,
Definitely.
which is super cool. So I guess what I said, what have you been seeing kind of just in your role at Cedar right now this year, like with AI impacting kind of the candidate experience and how you guys are doing stuff internally, like things that have kind of been on your company, your team's radar, um, that you've had to address as like AI's kind of burst onto the scene.
Yeah, I mean, definitely candidates misrepresenting is a big one on our radar now because we've seen a very sharp spike, I would say, even in the last 2 weeks. So it's interesting. I have been on the quest evaluating various AI tools to understand how they could help us, and it's on a few different levels. You can see I've got my juice box stuff right
Yeah,
here. But anyway, but yeah, I mean, I think definitely front of mind is, we don't intend next year on growing our TA organization. And so, and I think a lot of organizations are in that boat. So you got to look at your processes and like, are they dialed in enough? And like all the metrics around it. And then on top of that, is there AI that actually could help you? And then some of that can actually lead to cost savings. So anyway, and I mean,
yeah.
of course, better results, quality candidates, et cetera. So that's what's forefront of mind for me.
Yeah, I think just being a process driven, getting the most out of your team and your desk is, I mean, as a coach and a trainer, I mean, that works with corporate companies, works with agencies. That's what I'm seeing. I mean, the impact of, I started this thing as one recruiter can have the impact of 20 nowadays with AI and content marketing and automation and all that. I think that's what's so cool and neat about this. And this a conference like ERE, you can learn how to be on the forefront of that and how to be that type of talent and like just be dynamic in this day and age. I think that's the value of going to a conference, and even if you got to go virtually, just learning that and being upskilling yourself because you want to be the indispensable team member. And there's such an opportunity to be that person. I think that's what's so cool about the different technologies is the people that kind of get creative and they got to have the natural fundamental of like that sourcing, screening, client candidate experience, but they're becoming like super recruiters almost now. And I think that's the potential of this. It's easy to talk about who's going to get replaced, right? But I think that's a more interesting conversation. Who's going to elevate their game,
Yeah.
right, to be indispensable.
I mean, in my humble opinion, at least for now, I really think the shift is not so much in who's going to lose their job, but more we've got to become talent advisors. We've got to become less
Yeah,
reactive, to hiring needs. And really, now that we have AI, you can create products in seconds, and like I'm talking wow factor products. I mean, strategic, like talent intelligence, like before you go to a hiring sync or a kickoff meeting. And so,
Yeah.
like, it's just knowing, that it's out there. So that's exciting to me.
It's super cool. That's super cool. Is there any advice you have for candidates? I mean, this is kind of just a question that came to mind when you were talking, is for making sure that they can come across as like a real candidate. They don't get lost in the noise of fake candidates, right? Are things that candidates can do to make sure that like they're real, they don't get skipped, and that's like a big fear, right? Of kind of being passed over, being skipped. So like what are best practices on the candidate side to make sure that they don't get lost in the conversation?
Yeah.
Or skipped out. Yeah.
I mean, I think number one, your resume is important. You being able to tell your story.
Yeah.
I still see a lot of very generic resumes, and especially as AI increases within tech stacks,
Yeah.
yes, they will elevate the better people, that are aligning. No, there's no automated rejections. Let me make that clear because I know that's a thing that some people think. But yes, I mean, if you want, to be relevant, you need to have the right data telling your story in
Yeah.
your resume. So I would say that, like, start there.
The storytelling is interesting because it's storytelling, being able to quantify as much as you can with what you've done, and makes it so easy. It makes it just a lot easier to stand out. I think storytelling is great, not only in the resume, but people talk about cover letters. I'm like, LinkedIn is a great quote unquote, is should be a cover letter. Looking at
Yeah,
it, you can post content and featured section and expand on your profile. I mean, there's some really cool opportunities there, because us recruiters are on LinkedIn all day, every day. So if you leverage the about section, leverage the featured section, don't use it. I kind of joke, don't use LinkedIn as your therapist. Like, be careful in like how you present like LinkedIn, right? But like, use it as a way to kind of as a marketing tool for yourself. And if you're confused on how to do that, I mean, take bootcamp, study it, learn copywriting, direct response, like, whatever that looks like, the storytelling, because that's the magic. Being like treating your job search almost like your personal brand. You don't have to go viral or anything else like that, but like kind of being able to kind of own that. I think that's LinkedIn can be your resume if you're looking. Your resume obviously making that better, but it just makes it easier to stand out. I think that's like where, yeah, I agree, to be tell that story and get creative with it, and you'd be surprised who's paying attention.
yeah, totally. And it's not a bad thing to show who you are too, because
Yeah,
that does attract people. It creates an emotional connection. You don't even know that person; they don't know you.
yeah.
So yes, your story can be told well with LinkedIn too.
Yeah, and it's worth telling. I think that's seeing talking to a lot of recruiters and folks on recruiting and TA. Yeah, the science of recruiting can kind of be similar, the fundamentals, but the art of it is what you've made of it and how you've approached it and all that. And let people connect with that and don't worry about impressing everyone. You're really using it to go find the people that you're meant to connect
That's
with and
right.
work for.
I totally
So,
agree.
any last thoughts, words of wisdom about ERE, the event, AI, anything like that before we sign off?
Yeah, no, I mean, I really believe ERE is a great conference. They put a lot of thought, into who's going to be speaking in relevant topics. So, if you can come live, do it. You can definitely increase your network, meet some phenomenal practitioners, learn some best practices. If you can't attend in person, virtual is great. It's there for you. You'll get recordings and all that great stuff, and you can take that back to your team and especially back to your desk. So yeah.
Yeah. I concur, and Josh does a fantastic job, I think, organizing the event, the speakers, and just being really strategic and intentional about what adding the value and making sure that it's advancing the conversation, talking about stuff that's topical. And I think there's a great pulse on the market with the speakers, and I see it's not the same thing that it was in April. Like, there's definitely a shift, and it's evolving with the times pretty rapidly, which is pretty impressive. Because that's hard to do. It's hard enough for me to figure out how to speak at one event, let alone organizing 20, 30 people. So I'm constantly amazed at the ERE team. So I can't wait to see your talk and meet in person finally. And I just appreciate you being here and sharing a little bit of knowledge and what you've seen work.
Awesome. Thank you, Clark.
Thanks, Jen, and make sure to like, download, follow. Give some love, but more importantly, sign up for ERE. There's a discount code in the episode description. I think get 10% off. So sign up in person, virtual. Again, go make it happen. You're going to learn a ton if you show up. So make that happen. Make sure to connect with myself and Jen on LinkedIn if we aren't connected already. And until next time, y'all, happy hunting.